Hey, hello everyone. Welcome to first Grid Talk of 2024. So this session is focused on the capability formula. For those that came to our senior user forum back in October, we took you through the approach. So we thought we'd just take everyone through the capability formula. And also there's quite a few resources that we've built to support you in capability development. So we'll go through those through the session. For those that are new to Grid Talk, it's just our way of Method Grid of just sharing best practice on capability development, capability uplift, and the work that we do with our clients. Sometimes we will do sessions like this, which are sort of resources that we're sharing with the community, and also we use clients running a number of different sessions throughout the year. Just whilst I have your attention, obviously everyone knows we've done a lot of work with Network Rail recently. We launched Pace Digital in January, and in February we're talking about more the broader impact that Pace has had on the UK rail industry, but also there's more coming in terms of the plans for Pace in the future this year. So we just thought we'd take everyone through that just to give you insight on the developments for Pace later in the year. Again, just as obviously you can see the picture and you know who I am. I think I know most of you on the call. Sam, do you want a quick say? I think this is your first Grid Talk.
Yeah,
Sam,
it is. Yeah, hi everyone. Sam. I work in the professional services team at Method Grid, and I spend my time most of the time in one way or another working with clients to improve their capabilities. So, yeah.
For those that are new to Livestorm, guys, we keep these sessions fairly informal. So look, if there's stuff or questions that you want to ask and chat, the nature of a Grid Talk is that it's dialogue. So please, use the chat, ask us questions, and we'll go through as we go through the session. Okay. Okay. Just a quick run through, just so you can see this. For those that are completely new to Method Grid, and we're going to have to canter through this really quickly because there's quite a lot to cover in terms of the capability formula. Obviously, the main problem we help clients with is reducing cost of poor quality that comes from inconsistent project, process, service delivery. The kind of 1 to 8 pain symptoms. I'm sure if you've worked in professional services, you'll feel those pain symptoms. The key focus for us was, well, what causes it? And the 4 key points we focus on is, 1, make sure that you've got clarity on method and ways of working. 2 is, okay, great, I've got content, I've got a method, but do I feel like it sits on the shelf? So how do I ensure that people can actually use it, apply it, and develop from it? 3rd is, I can have the best method in the world, but if I can't enable people and give them the confidence and the training and the learning to be able to execute it, then it's just going to stay on the shelf. And there'll always be, in the work that we do, especially with knowledge-based, human-based processes, a high degree of residual risk. So it's really just how well audit and assurance are integrated into ways of working. So is it clear on what the requirements are and what evidence is needed? And then the second thing is, how well are audit and assurance integrated as members of the team, so that they can find things quickly, and also the stuff that needs to be improved and addressed, it's not just an Excel spreadsheet thrown over the fence. In terms of the we talk about this a lot. It's kind of the playbook improvement loop, which is a core concept of our business, which is we're helping clients build master enterprise playbooks. So this is how we do project delivery. This is how we do procurement. Once you build that playbook, you can then clone it and create project-specific instances of it. That's what we call Grid Deliver. You assign teams, track delivery, and use the platform in that way. And there's obviously we introduced Gantt at the start or the back end of last year. Once you're obviously using it in delivery, you can then start to add the assurance aspects to delivery. So you can say which controls need evidence attached to be approved, and we've also introduced stage gates. But the key part of sort of improving process is, okay, well, what have we learned from delivery instances, and being able to apply that quite simply back into the master playbook so that the next iteration, the next time it's cloned, it benefits everyone involved in the process. I don't know if you, for those that follow me on LinkedIn, we pushed out a little article last night just about how helping organizations mature up the sort of maturity ladder in terms of process maturity, which is on LinkedIn. Just about us, if you've never heard of MethodGrid, all we care about is helping teams improve how they deliver projects and services. And the way that we do that is by building the world's leading AI-empowered knowledge and project management platform. And obviously we have, I think a few of them on today, just fantastic clients that obviously we love working with, but also everyone plays an active role in developing the platform, which keeps us honest and makes sure what we're building is relevant to help you. Right, introduction to the capability formula. For those, I mean, we went through this at the Senior User Forum in October, and very quickly, in terms of when we use the term capability, obviously organizations will have a strategy that they want to achieve, and underpinning that are a set of capabilities that they need to deliver to enable that strategy. Those capabilities will deliver, are made up of resources, process, technology, people that are coordinated to deliver a strategic outcome for each capability. Now, so that's where they sit. What we wanted to get to was recognize the kind of two key disciplines that are needed for sustainable improvement. And why is it important? And reflecting on this a couple of weeks ago is, if I look at most major transformation programs, most of them will always be positioned as, we've assessed all of your strategic capabilities and you're underperforming. And our major transformation program is to go from one step, from a 1 to a 4 or to a 5 if we want to be world class. I'd say that's most transformation programs I've come across are always kind of capability based. And what we want to try and offset is, well, actually, normally it's a failure in an organization that they are not constantly improving capabilities. And this is why we wrote the white paper. So what can you do as an organization to embed capability uplift and capability management into your organization? So obviously just the two phrases, because we'll use them as we go through. Uplift, we say, look, that's the kind of how you are improving a specific capability as a kind of targeted action. Whereas capability management really is how you are embedding the culture of capability development management within your organization. Okay, so they're the kind of two components. And the reason you need both of them is really what you're trying to ensure is that capability uplift just isn't kind of a transactional activity. It's just not a one-off. It's kind of how are we constantly developing and implementing sustainable changes that are improving the capabilities that we need to deliver now. So you need both in order to be successful in making it a sustainable improvement. Now, the formula that we wrote for the capability formula is based on this formula. We'll come on back to it in a second, but it's basically based on the core 7 building blocks that are needed for how you think about a capability. And then the 7 key principles are, well, what do you actually need to put around in the organization to actually enable that to be successful? Now, Sam, I'll do principles if you take us through the 7 building blocks.
Yeah, so this is our capability canvas, which pulls together the 7 building blocks. And this is an asset we've started using to drive an awful lot of conversations, really, because what it provides is the ability to look at everything that contributes to a capability and pull it together in a way where you can see that kind of bird's eye position of how things interconnect and how things need to be improved to enable the various different elements. So conversations may start from any one of these areas, but often they need input from all of the others to make the change and the improvements that we're looking for a success. What we're going to do now is just drive through each of the elements in turn, just to talk in brief about what they cover and some of the kind of pitfalls and improvements that can be looked for. If we start with capability assessment, the point here is that this is the starting point. It's an ability to set a baseline for the capability, but to do it in a way that's repeatable, and if at all possible, independent, to ensure that there is an ability to make kind of data-driven decisions along this, and to drive insights which are kind of truly improvement actions that organizations can go after, and you're doing it for the right reason rather than on that kind of gut instinct kind of basis. If we've got that baseline and we've got it in a way to do it on a repeatable manner, the second point we move to is people capability. Now, there's a reason we put this up front as kind of the first thing that we look at, and that's because really, no capability really works without people. It's the way that we implement and deploy capabilities to add value. We talk an awful lot about AI and all those kind of elements, but really without those people, it's not possible to deploy that value. The elements we're looking at here are around how we kind of align competencies and skills to the capability we're trying to drive, and making sure that they are the right ones that put in place, but also making sure that we're driving kind of improvement in engagement with employees, making sure we're building resilience and adaptability. That last point being really key to make sure that as things change in the real world, those teams are able to change and deploy as needed. Alongside that is partners. It's pretty rare now that you get a capability that exists with solely internal resources, or solely in one department. The partner piece is about collaboration, really, and those collaboration points are about kind of extending reach, whether that be for kind of relationships, networking into different markets, or whether it's for expertise that can't be picked up in-house, or whether it's simply a point around kind of the opportunity cost for people. How do we make sure we're making the best of the time we've got and using other partners to kind of allow the resources we've got to be deployed correctly, and getting that balance correct and really thinking about it strategically is important to making sure that capabilities can be successful. Playbooks, as I'm sure everyone can imagine, we end up talking about an awful lot. If we've got the people in place and we've got the partners, playbooks are really about making sure that we have a structured, repeatable process in place that allows us to kind of deploy that knowledge in a way that means we're not reliant on heroes. So without any form of tacit knowledge, we might have great people doing great things, but the tacit knowledge really makes sure that we can do that consistently in a standardized manner, and avoid any risks of kind of knowledge loss, if we do have kind of churn in people or anything along those lines. And it's really the signposting and the glue that holds the entire capability together. So getting it correct and making sure that people can access the information they need when they need it is key to deploying good capabilities. Organization. So it's fairly easy to look at this from an org chart perspective. Often an easy answer to look for is kind of a restructure. Just keep running through them and look for that kind of perfect solution. But really it goes deeper than that. The key to the organization piece is deploying those resources that we've got in place, and making sure that actually people have clarity on where they've got responsibility, how they collaborate across different teams, how they can help each other out, and how they maintain agility so that there isn't rigidity in that stops the capability from morphing to kind of match the external factors which are driving its ultimate success. Technology wise, for me personally, technology is usually the in to most of these conversations. The amount of times I've had a conversation which is kind of along the lines of, we found a solution, it's our silver bullet, it's going to solve everything for us. And really there are no silver bullets, which is the point of the canvas. It's pulling everything together and working out how we make those things successful. Technology can have a huge impact in terms of innovation and effectiveness for individuals, and really accelerating the benefits that come from the other elements of the canvas. But it needs to be done correctly, and chasing shiny things is often the problem that we're starting with, and trying to make sure we're clear on the structure of those technologies.
Sam, just on that one, I think that the technology lens, I can't tell you how many times where we've mapped this out, and when we talk about the capability, there's like 6 different systems doing this, sort of involved in it, duplicating the same capability, and then getting a handle on, well, some of these systems are kind of end of life, retirement. It's kind of like, well, what's the direction and which tool do we want to try and consolidate towards? So it's all right if it's greenfield and you're building a new capability. What you really need to grasp in is kind of what you're inheriting and making key decisions around how you navigate that.
Yeah, or even worse, the 6 and you're trying to add a 7th, which I've done a few times. And yeah, then management systems, just to polish this off, management systems is all about the kind of monitoring, governance, controls that sit alongside this capability. Done well, there's kind of a nirvana state that I think everyone's trying to search for, which is getting to a stage where the effort is on management by exception. You know, the controls and the monitoring mechanism are so clear that they give you the leading indicators to ensure you know where the risks are and where you need to focus attention. And if you get to that position, it means there's so much more time and headspace available to focus on continuous improvement as well as fixing those issues rather than firefighting. Pip, do you want to take the principles?
Yeah, sure. So I think we'll come on to the resources piece in a section after this piece, but we have built the capability canvas as a resource you guys can use, and we've used it. We use it with clients in terms of just getting an understanding of specifically where the pain points are. But and we've written a short guide of how you actually use it in that kind of environment where you're facilitating sort of a capability review assessment session. What we wanted to put in here is really, okay, well, I've got the things that make up the capability and I can design them, but what are the key things, principles that I need to follow, adhere to, that make capability management successful? In the white paper, what we've done here is not just sort of talk about what the principle is and why it's important. We've also tried to focus on, okay, well, what as a leader, what are the sort of helpful hints and tips about how you actually do this? And that's what we put in the white paper, just to sort of say, okay, well, these are some practical tips that you can actually do that encourage teams to focus on it. The first one, like growth mindset, and I think this is probably akin to the first problem. If you're doing major transformation programs and you are, it's mission critical that transformation gets it right first time in order to sort of save the company, and make it significantly better, that you don't really, in those big transformation programs that are impacting multiple capabilities at the same time, it's very difficult to say you're going to get it right first time. The key bit we say is that you need to adopt, with capability, you need to take a kind of growth-based mindset. And it's really with individuals just saying, look, it's okay to fail, because essentially by failing, we're gonna pick ourselves up, we're gonna learn more, what worked, what didn't work. But what you want to try and drive in is real grit with teams about, well, look, where's the real grit about being determined, how are we going to fix it, and learning from mistakes. I think the reason why this growth mindset is important is you're encouraging teams to learn from their experiences, learning from failure and getting it right. I think in a transformation world, you don't have that luxury. And if you haven't equipped teams with trying to improve capabilities on a kind of repeatable process, they don't know what has failed and they don't know what's worked. So trying to encourage a kind of growth mindset within the organization is really important. But also, when you look at trying to recruit people, what you're trying to recruit and find are people that demonstrate real grit. They've been solely determined or not, don't care if they fail, they just pick themselves up and they give it a go, and they keep going. And it's that kind of mindset that we really look for. And if you ever want to, we'll send the link out. There's a talk on it by, I think, Angela Duckworth on grit and how important it is, for your work life in terms of being successful. So there's a TED talk on that if you want to look for grit. So one is growth mindset. The two, and Sam mentioned it, the kind of capability canvas will say, look, you need to do a capability assessment. And we would say, look, the key to it is making it independent. But what I'm going to say by that, it doesn't mean that you need to go and get a third party to come and do an independent assessment. You can do, and most organizations will. I think the key bit is it's impartial. If you want someone to come and assess your capability, then they can't really be bound by the same leadership structure that who is responsible for that capability, because they will influence the outcome. It has to be done in an independent nature and objectively done using a kind of unbiased approach, because that's kind of, we want that fair assessment to really drive actions. When you've got that assessment, and what we say is, look, at least try and do an annual assessment, baseline where you are, but then try and do a quarterly health check with a leadership team, with your team, about, okay, well, let's keep ourselves honest. Have we, in the last quarter, actually addressed any of these points and moved the dial? The actionable insights to say, look, we would say, look, we'll come on to it in a bit more about how you manage this as a project, but if there is an intervention that you want to try and make to a capability, you want to try and time box it to about 12 weeks, that the teams can actually achieve it within a 12-week basis. And I think the most important aspect of doing the independent assessment is helping the teams focus and agree on what the priorities are. Because, you know, if you don't have that, it can end up being argument, round and round the table conversations about, and actually not getting anywhere. What we're trying to do with the canvas and doing the assessment is get people, that is a problem, we all agree, yeah, it's the problem, that's a priority, let's focus on how we fix it and take action with it. So that's the kind of benefit of keeping an independent, impartial, repeatable based assessment. So that's the second principle. Third principle is, with any kind of capability uplift activity that you want to take, sometimes it can drift. It can be like, oh, this is just BAU, kind of how we manage the team and how we develop it. And what you'll find of it in those environments is it'll be a great workshop, great ideas initially, and then just drifts. And I think the reason we would say, look, manage it as a project is, what you're trying to get is make sure that the sponsor is giving you the kind of investment, the drive, and the governance around making sure that if you are undertaking an uplift activity for a capability, that you're accountable, or there's a sponsor holding you accountable to do it. So yeah, manage as a project, make sure you've got leadership sponsorship, make sure you're giving the team sufficient time and resource to do it. Make sure you are targeting like the improvements that you want to make, and hold yourself accountable for each, you know, set a quarterly target, how are we going to improve it, and use that to drive performance and keep it honest, keep yourselves honest to it. But then I think the key aspect of it, and we'll come on to it in some of the other principles, is making sure that the changes you're making and the improvements to capability are aligned with where the organization wants to go. I think the greatest frustration is, oh, we fixed this capability, and then next thing the leadership turn around and go, oh, by the way, yeah, no, we're not interested in that, we're doing something else. And the only way you can mitigate that risk of happening is by having proper sponsorship in your project and in your capability sort of uplift activity. Okay, so that's manage as a project. Now this is probably the most important one, which is, and this is why we built the canvas. So many times we've seen it, which is when you think about a capability, and try and I keep the canvas in the back of my head when people are asking me about, oh, what should we do, is I'm always trying to align it with the 7 building blocks. If someone says, oh, look, I think we need to introduce a new piece of technology into the business, I'm like, okay, fine. Well, is there any process that we need to it? What do we need to do with people? What do we need to do around governance? And is this a new partner that we're adding? And making sure that, okay, if we want to make changes that are impacting capability, just making sure that the individual has thought through kind of all of the actions that are going to make it a sustainable change. Or it's just going to be new technology installed, and it's kind of like, okay, well, where's the process? Have we trained anyone? No, we just, you know, and it kind of falls apart there. So taking a holistic mindset is really key, because we want to make sure it's kind of balanced and a sustainable change, you know, and it's just trying to achieve the balance across the 7 building blocks that keep you focused. And Sam, you mentioned this. I think the overemphasis on any single building block, and I think it is the curse of the constant restructure. Can't tell you how many organizations will constantly move the deck chairs around with the pursuit that thinking by simply moving people around, that will solve our problems. When if you looked at the building blocks, you'd probably say, actually, we keep restructuring, but we don't have a process, we don't invest in people. So actually just moving the deck chairs around is not really going to have a sustainable improvement in how we deliver the capability. And quite simply, it's probably more effective if you just focused on the red areas that you don't invest in that capability canvas, to really then think about, well, actually restructure is not really going to give us the outcome. But again, it's probably the easiest thing someone can say is, oh, well, if we just move people around, it will make it better. That'll buy me another 6 months. is the cost. So try and take a holistic approach, but also, you know, if things are moving, just ask yourself the 7 questions. Have we thought through this across all aspects of the capability, just to give us confidence that we've taken that approach? A repeatable habit. I think this kind of is linked with the playbook and method process. So if we're really honest, if we want to help people sort of execute capabilities consistently, if we haven't put process in place and it's kind of a bit ad hoc, unstructured, and you know, it's kind of good luck, just find your way through it, you're always going to be disappointed. You know, it's going to be, oh, well, we're not delivering this capability consistently. A lot of it does fall down to the very basics that, yeah, there's not a real clear articulation of how we're actually going to execute that, especially as most capabilities tend to be cross-functional. And as you know, it kind of if there's any different function, it's normally treated like a different company in its own right. And so it's really ensuring that it's really a clear handoff between how the functions integrate with each other, how they deliver the capability, and that process may span across that piece. But if you don't sort of define it, you've got very little to prosecute the business against. So knowledge sharing and skill development is obviously key to help people execute it. So integrating learning resources into your playbook to ensure that people have got access to the information they need when they need it. But also remember, it's kind of that capability, that process is always going to be like under constant flux. New people will leave, new joiners are joining the business. You know, when you look at how that capability will perform, if it's not written down, then the heartbeat's going to be really, really erratic. Whereas if you have defined the process and if you put controls in place that can control it, then that, yeah, losing 3 people, losing 5 people, onboarding another 3 people, suddenly I think you're suddenly reducing the amount of sort of constant flux that capability is under pressure for. So that's kind of the focus, is really, when I think about each capability, how do I make it a repeatable habit for people, that they just pick it up and they know how to follow it. 6 is probably is one of the hardest challenges, I think, for anyone. So we call it the kind of asset-based mindset. Based on the sense of, when you map out the capability canvas and you've got all of the kind of core building blocks that make up that capability, what you have to view them as is, well, they're the most valuable assets that contribute to the building and development of this capability. What we find, and it's I think it's probably more human behavior than anything else, is there's a natural kind of instinct that, oh, I need to build a new asset. I don't like, I've joined the business, I've looked at what's in there, I don't like that, I'm going to build my own. I have to feel like I've built my own. And I think for leaders, you really have to challenge that behavior. It's kind of, no, it's not about coming in and resetting each asset back to 0. You need to pick it up and you need to develop it and improve it, rather than kind of writing it off just because you want to feel like you've had the opportunity to shape it because it's yours. If you don't fix that, your capability, if every asset's getting reset based on who picks it up and wants to make it their own, then essentially it's very difficult to start getting continuous improvement in the assets that teams use, be it templates, be it process. If you're constantly resetting it and rebuilding, teams will struggle with making it a repeatable habit, but also I'm not sure you're actually raising the bar. You're constantly lowering it, hoping that you get it right this time, which isn't right. And then the other one, which we put this, avoid the red button. I can't. It happens a few times in organisations. I think you always kind of want to watch it and observe it, but you'll find that sometimes like leaders will come in and say, "Oh, do you know what? We're gonna completely scrap that capability because we're going to rebuild it from scratch." Oh, let's we'll wipe the slate clean, we'll get rid of it, and then we're going to rebuild it completely from scratch with new people. And we call that the red button. And it's, I think what we talked about before is, if you think you're going to be able to rebuild the capability from scratch in an organization that isn't very good at building capabilities, then don't be surprised that in about 12 months, 18 months, you've got the same problems that you faced before. Because the individual that's trying to rebuild that capability is going to face the same problems, same people in the support they need into building and developing that capability. So I think we always kind of watch out for it. Look, if you're really going to wipe that capability off and then try and rebuild it, I think you probably want to make sure you've done a thorough assessment, and it isn't just as simple as just saying, well, actually, the reason it's not great is we don't invest in it. we've never written the process down, and we don't even provide training for people. That is probably an easier fix than fully building it from the ground up from scratch. So I think we would say what you want to try and do is encourage continuous improvement, taking the asset-based mindset and improving it, rather than, okay, let's hit the red button and try again. So that's the kind of asset-based mindset. And then the seventh one is capability confidence. I think me and Sam was, I don't think we've landed on the name, but I think this is the one we agreed that sort of articulated it the best. And kind of what you want to ensure is the people that you have in your organization, you want them to be capability builders, and you want them to have the confidence that actually what's most important to our firm or organization is that we're building capabilities, we're sharing knowledge, and that's contributing to the growth of our organization. So it's kind of, first one is finding the right individuals that are open and confident in themselves, have the self-esteem that it's okay, I'm not going to lose my value by sharing what I have. I mean, I'm sure some of you that have worked in the consulting environment, you'll know that there's the individual that has a laptop and it's like he crowds it and he doesn't share templates, and it's kind of like, it's mine, I'm the expert. They're not the best engineers for building capability. So it's trying to find the right individuals, but also rewarding the type of behavior that contributes to capability development. It's also making sure that the capability confidence is really making sure that capabilities are scalable, transferable, and asking kind of key questions. Look, if we lost everyone today, how quickly can we rebuild that capability from scratch and just add people to it? And that's kind of a key question we'd ask, because it normally determines, oh, actually, no, that's in people's heads, that's going to walk out the door. So making sure that capabilities are kind of packaged and can be rebuilt. Also, if you're building capability and you want to transfer it across regions, across globes, then essentially packaging it up and being able to say, well, look, we can now deploy this capability elsewhere is also important. And as a leader, it's basically, you want to try and improve collaboration, motivation, and trust. That's the key, really, to give people confidence that it's okay that they can leave stuff behind. That's their job, is build it, leave it behind. And if you get them to a point, if you can help people develop the competency in building capabilities, they're incredibly valuable to your firm or any organization, but they have the confidence to know that, look, it doesn't matter where I go, I know I can build capability wherever I go. And that's a key skill set to have for any employee. So they're the kind of 7 key principles, and it's kind of like, the 7, it worked out by the numbers, the 7 key building blocks and the 7 key principles, which is helping you get to how you make capabilities world-class, which is, really making sure that you have a central, accessible, evolving playbook, making it a repeatable habit. You've got a competent, trained staff that can execute it, kind of a repeatable habit. And then you've got leadership-led compliance, which is a sort of management system that's in place, but also managing it as a project in terms of making sure that you are realizing the changes and uplift, and you've got the support you need to make those changes. These were some of the sort of resources that we wanted to pull together, and this kind of comes from the conversation we had about white papers at the Senior User Forum. What we wanted to say is, look, we see loads of firms doing it, and it's fine. What we wanted to be was, look, if we push out a white paper, it's useful, it's great, I read it, but I think one of the frustrations, and some of our clients that were interested in it, is, well, how do I actually put it into practice? I get the case studies, that's great, but where's the kind of tools that takes the theory, takes the ideas, and actually makes it something that I can actually practically use and develop and improve? And that's kind of, we did similar with building world-class playbooks, but we recognized that this topic was a lot broader. So we're going to release the white paper next week, and I think, guys, as you've registered for the event, there'll be a follow-up email post the event that will give you access to the white paper. And that's kind of a mix of, look, explaining the building blocks in detail, explaining the each of the principles that are there, but like I said before, it's much more practical in terms of, okay, well, what can I actually do, and guidance in how actually I implement this within the organization. So that paper will come out next week. The other piece is the capability canvas. So this will be released as a PowerPoint and PDF, so that you can use it on Teams. Like if you're using it with Teams, you can use it with Teams. We run a few workshops with clients on trying to understand their capability, and we use it by using it on a Teams environment. But also, if you're running a kind of face-to-face workshop, there's a PDF version that you can print off. And we did, to help you actually use it, we wrote a short guide, just, okay, well, look, this is how you actually use it in a workshop environment, some of the key questions to ask as you use it to get people to sort of think about the capability. The other change that we made in the platform, which will come out next week as well, is we tested this in the platform, because we did Sam, was it back in December? I think we did the clients and quarterly summit with the team, and we used the capability canvas to obviously say, well, look, what are we going to do this quarter? What are the changes that we want to make? And we basically built this in the platform, and so we'll launch this capability playbook so that it's based on the canvas, but then you can use the platform and build elements for the individual activities, so that you get an individual plan for your team about, okay, well, what are we committing to this quarter in terms of the changes that we want to make to the capability? And you can see holistically, okay, well, we're making changes here to partners, we're making changes here to the method, we're making changes here to the people investment. So it's just helping teams have visibility of, look, these are the interventions that we're making for the capability, and then if we need to demonstrate that we're managing it as a project and that we have a plan and we're tracking that plan, then you can use the playbook to switch between the grid view and the Gantt view. The other resource that we're introducing for, and this, well, we designed this one for consulting professional service firms, is what we call it the professional services sort of a capability assessment tool. And this is more of a very kind of high level assessment of, I think there's 10 key strategic capabilities for a professional services firm. How we do lead generation, how we do business development, how we deliver service propositions, how we do timesheets, financing, tracking, and that aspects of it. But the assessment tool just allows you to quickly use the leader's input into how well do we think we're performing at business development, how well do we think we're performing at lead generation. And it's a view that you set at the start of the year, but then you review each quarter. Most organizations will have a quarterly board, and it's or monthly board, but you're using that tracker to say, okay, actually, do we feel like we are making improvements to the strategic capabilities that we need to? So that's specific for just the PS firms, but there's a definition of each capability. And again, whether it's our capability definition or you want to tweak it for your own firm or an organization, you can. The key bit is that you've got a tool where you've got the leaders focused on, okay, what capabilities do we want to invest in? What do we want to improve? And then allow that to drive action in the plate for a specific capability playbook. So yeah, I think in summary, it's just making sure, when we push out the capability formula, I could just leave it as a white paper and it would be an interesting read. It is. But actually, what's more important to us is, okay, you guys have got more resources, more tools to actually help you apply some of the aspects of the formula in your organization. So at this point, guys, I know we kind of had to really get through that quite quickly. Just to give you just make sure you kind of understood the kind of key aspects of the 7 building blocks about the canvas, and then the principles that make it successful. So very open now. If you've got any questions, then please just use the chat. Rab, I should also mention what we've had a lot of interest in doing, and I think it's written in the white paper actually, is great structure, great, like it, but actually what we would like is could you build like a capability guidebook for particular capabilities? So one of the things that we'll be doing sort of the next iteration is using the canvas to actually then articulate, okay, if I was looking at how I fix business development or lead generation, this is the capability canvas that you need to think about, and then a guidebook written for a particular capability. Just really just helping you, okay, these are the things to think about if you're improving a specific capability. Now we'll keep that kind of aligned with like what capabilities clients are interested in fixing, but naturally business development is quite key at the moment. Obviously program, project delivery, service propositions, we'll shape the guidebooks around that, but that's just giving you a start to 10 to help you with your capability uplift activity. Okay, any other questions? Thanks for the feedback, Rab. Cool. Well, look, if there's no further questions, just to remind you guys, we'll be doing the next grid talk will be 29th of Feb, same time. I want 1 till 2. We'll be joined by Mike Wright at Network Rail, who's the head of program management for Network Rail. And this really is a focus on the impact PACE has had on the UK rail industry. And then for those that work in the rail sector, kind of what are the next building blocks for PACE? Now, we did PACE Digital in January, but there's then further changes which will probably have an impact on the supply chain, about the access to the resources and information that you'll have access to help you apply PACE or support Network Rail in delivering PACE on the projects that you work with. Oh, quick question. Do you think capability building should be focused individually on the key elements? And if organizations should focus on the business models alongside the capability building? I think the key piece first, and I wrote about it in the white paper, is one of the key points is you need to understand what the actual capabilities are that you need and what the boundaries are. That's why we built the capability builder for the professional services firms, to try and help organizations shape that. We did write techniques that if you don't have that, how you actually define capabilities. We wrote a small section in the white paper just about the techniques that you can do about how do I actually write the boundaries and definitions for each capabilities. I think the business model aspect of it, I think business model normally sits a bit more in strategic strategy definition first, before you can then translate that into the capabilities that you need to actually deliver it. So I think I'd say business model is probably just before you get into operating model. And I think operating model tends then to shape, okay, well, we now have the business model structure, we now have the operating model, but then what are the capabilities that we need to actually make that business model a reality? What other bit we did write in the white paper is, and it can happen a lot, is you're not trying to break capabilities down. And I've done it previously as an architect, is break capabilities down into level 1, 2, 3, and 4. I think if I'm looking at capability uplift and improvement, I'm not trying to decompose them at that level. I'm just trying to helpfully get teams to focus on a particular capability that they own, and then ask them to drive it. So it's normally I'm decomposing capabilities to a level that teams can own and develop and improve. Hopefully that was hopefully that was helpful. Sam, any thoughts?
I think having that linkage between business model, strategy, the capabilities, I mean, you brought it up at the start, it's vastly important. So yes, it does have to be considered, but your point around the kind of the stream of events that get there is important as well.
Yeah. I think the only really resource I read that was really helpful on that space in terms of business model, model design, I think there's a book, I think it's called The Strategy Journey. That's quite a good book to use that sort of explains how those things are connected. So I'd recommend, but in terms of if you want to know more about that, then yeah, give The Strategy Journey a good read. That's quite a good book for the connections on that. Okay, any other questions? No. Okay. Yeah, so for those that use the platform, the capability playbook, that's going to be released next week. So if you do want to give it a go and start mapping out how we're going to improve a particular capability, and then that we want a plan behind it, that playbook is designed around the canvas. So you can put kind of the different interventions that you want to plan and use for capability uplift, and then you can quickly convert that into a plan with the team and track and deliver that. Yeah, the capability canvas, so like I said before, that will be released. I think the link is virtually ready. We are just going to make all the resources available on the website so that you can access them. The capability canvas will be 2 templates and a guide that you can access and use, and so far feedback has been really positive. And yeah, the capability sort of assessment tool, that's also available, and you know, strongly recommend it if you want to sit down with your teams and work through and just get an honest assessment, quick score of how they feel our capabilities perform. It's very quickly, you'll very quickly get a picture of different perspectives and viewpoints. If you score, I think the measure we use is like 1 to 10, 10 being world class, 1 being no capability at all. But very quickly you can get the read of the room about, okay, well, how do individuals actually feel about how we perform individual capabilities? Again, that'll also be available on the website. And that concludes the capability formula. So next steps for us is you'll receive an email next week which will give you access to the white paper, and it'll also give you sort of access to the individual resources that we've talked about on this session. Okay, so listen, as always, thank you for taking the time to spend with us, and yeah, we look forward to seeing you in February on the 29th for Network Rail. Cool. Thanks everyone.
Thanks, Phil.